Good evening, everyone. I'm Phil Trifoletti, Mayor of the Village of Mamaroneck, and I'm here tonight with members of the Harbor Island Master Plan Committee and our consultant, AKRF. And tonight we're here to give you a community update on the progress we have been making with the Harbor Island Master Plan. With me here tonight from the Harbor Island Master Plan are Steve Light, the chair of the committee, Pete Agliardo, Rocky Cipriano, and George Schieferdecker. And here from AKRF is Tracy Shepard. I think everyone believes Harbor Island is one of the most valuable assets the Village of Mamaroneck has to offer. The master plan is needed to bring our harbor to its full potential in an orderly fashion and not doing things piecemeal, but based on a plan. Also, it is only a plan and will change over time even after it's adopted. All of the information and the ideas that the committee is gathering is coming from residents and stakeholders who use the harbor, and Steve will explain to you in a little while what the stakeholders are. The Harbor Island Master Plan Committee has been working with our consultant for the last 6 months, gathering ideas and information from the residents and the stakeholders. At this time, we do not have a master plan. We will not have a master plan until approximately 6 months from now, when the process of gathering data is completed. Steve will take us through that process in a few minutes. Our master plan may make very few changes to the harbor. It just may make it over to look better, or the plan may in fact make significant changes in the future. Clearly, all the sport fields at the harbor, the pavilion and the beach, the senior center, the Coast Guard Auxiliary Building, the boat launch, and the tennis courts are all key cornerstones of the harbor and are all critical elements of the plan. Also critical to the plan will be a maintenance program to keep the harbor fields and the facilities in terrific shape. I want to stress to you that the master plan has not yet been put together, and it won't be for another 6 months. And I want to stress that it's based on input from the residents and from the stakeholders. So with that out of the way, I want to turn over to Steve, who will take you through our process.
Thanks, Bill. The major reason that the committee was formed in the first place was to make sure that we get maximum participation from every group in the community. And the committee was put together. We have, I believe, 8 members. It could be up to 11, but we have 8 members. And they were chosen for a reason, because they represent themselves a diverse group of people in the community and also diverse interests. But also for another reason, because we feel that, or Phil felt, the people that were appointed to this committee are people that can reach out to the groups that use the park, virtually every group that uses the park. The park is the cornerstone, is the center of the village, and we want to make sure as we come up with a master plan that the plan reaches out to everybody that will use this and will touch this park, and they all have a chance to help figure out what it's going to be in the long term. So to do this, we identified, what was it, 30, 35 stakeholders, I think.
Maybe even longer. Yeah.
Maybe more. And stakeholders, we call them stakeholders. What they are basically are user groups for the park, and they range from people who are playing softball or playing tennis or using the docks or the ramp and so on and so on. And we divided these stakeholders out among all of us, and we went to reach out to these people and bring their feelings back to the committee. Now, another reason that the people I believe were put in this committee is they can do something. They can separate their personal feelings, and we all have our personal feelings. I think we're all here because we have very strong personal feelings about the park. But we've been asked to separate our personal feelings from the stakeholder feelings that we're bringing back, and making sure that people are being heard clearly and these groups are being heard clearly, so we can process that information to begin the process. So that's been going on since, I guess, October. We had our first meeting in October. After October, we started reaching out to the community and meeting with those groups. The one big thing that's happened so far that many of you know about, I think we had about 81 people
close to
came
81
February 8th for the focus group. And there AKRF led the presentation. And we asked everyone to come and really tell us what they wanted the park to be. And we'll talk later about what some of those central themes are. So that was a big thing that happened. And I believe that we've already mailed out to each of the attendees a summary of that focus group. And I think it's up on the website at this point as well?
Yes, both the summary and a draft vision statement, and also the detailed focus group comments.
Right. So I would suggest anyone that if you were there, you've gotten it. If you're interested, you should go to the website and take a look at that.
And that's the village website.
That's the village website. one of the primary reasons we're here tonight is we want to promote something that's happening May 3rd, which is going to be the next major milestone in this process in getting to a master plan. And May 3rd is going to be a time when it's called a design charrette, is the fancy word for it, what planners and architects call it. But in effect, it's really the community comes together and breaks out into small groups and really begins to develop a master plan themselves.
Yep.
So Tracy's going to talk more about exactly what that's going to be. So no master plan is in place. All we're doing really now is gathering as much input as we can from the community, every part of the community. And this May 3rd is going to be the next place where we begin to put some of that stuff together and put the pieces together in smaller groups to decide what a master plan may be. After that, our next big meeting, then there'll be more community work. We'll be reaching out to the community and telling them what the results are of that May 3rd meeting.
You may want to say at the May 3rd meetings at the Rhinebeck High School this time.
Thank you. It's at Rhinebeck High School in the cafeteria, at 9 a.m. To 12 p.m. on May 3rd.
Peter Mustek has been gracious enough to offer us the great facility, and there's plenty of parking, and we'll have coffee and donuts, and so we welcome everyone to come.
That's right. And bagels.
And bagels, yeah. And bagels.
So I'll say right now, that is the time. The May 3rd meeting is a critical time to come. And someone at one of our meetings said, you know, the problem is we don't have enough controversy. You know, no one's building something huge in the park right now, so no one's in an uproar. Well, you know, let's not have to be in an uproar. Let's decide, let's come and talk specifically about what we can do constructively and hear everyone. And together as a community come up with a master plan. So even after May 3rd, we have no master plan. And then we go back, and there's lots more meetings. And by the way, I should mention that our committee meets the fourth Wednesday of every month at 6:45, usually at the old Village Hall.
At the courthouse.
At the courthouse. And we invite everyone to come and watch and participate. And as a matter of fact, we're also making specific invitations to larger stakeholder groups that may want to participate in those.
One thing, Steve. If you sent that out mailed it out to all the people that were at the last meeting?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And you said you were going to put it on the website?
Webpage.
Yep.
I don't have a website. Would you have some in the Village Hall that people can come down and they can pick it up? Because this way
Yes.
they'll be able to pick it up and
Yep.
see. All righty? So this way nobody is left out. They'll be able to see what went on before, look at it. This way, if you have any questions,
And we could also mail them to the stakeholder groups. There's
Right.
no reason why we
That's
can't
a
do
good
that.
idea.
good.
We'll
This
do
way, I feel that the more we get out to the public and have them come and comment on them, and that's what we're really looking for. We're really looking for people to come and comment.
That is the mission of this committee. The mission of this committee is to gather as much information and to make sure that people know about this process. So no one gets down the line in October when the board may be adopting this master plan and says, hey, I didn't have a chance to participate. So it's up to us to make sure that doesn't happen. And so that's why we're here today, to let people know about May 3rd and some of the other milestones that will be coming up between now and October, when we're hoping to actually have that master plan that would be adopted by the village board.
Right.
Okay. I think maybe we can hit on exactly what a master plan is.
Sure. Well, I think Phil touched on it accurately earlier when he said that the plan is a long-term vision for the park, and it's basically to prevent piecemeal development in the park. You start off with your draft vision statement and a final vision statement eventually that sets out goals, very broad goals for the park and what it should be. And ideally those goals would be articulated in a physical plan, a map essentially, showing where things are located. And over the years, this would be a reference tool for whoever is steering, if it's this committee or another committee, making sure the plan gets implemented so that as new proposals are put forth for new facilities in the park or upgrading of facilities, you look at your master plan to make sure those proposals are consistent with the community's goals and vision.
Exactly. I mean, ideas come up all the time for the park, and every time an idea comes up in isolation, people talk about that idea in isolation, and it creates controversy, whether it's a restaurant, which has come up in the past, or whether it's a spray ground, or whether it's tennis courts. Whatever those things are, when they come up in isolation, there are really no benchmarks to weigh this against. There's no way of really evaluating this without it's a framework.
And that doesn't mean there isn't going to be controversy later on.
Right.
And master plans need to be updated Conditions change, the community changes. It could be updated every 5 years, 10 years. In this case, it's about 10 years. So it's dynamic in that sense.
Absolutely. Another benefit we have right now about doing this proactively versus reactively is if you do it reactively and something comes up an issue, let's say it's a sport field issue, you're going to bring the people out in the community who have a real concern about the sport field. And that's what they're going to talk about, and you're going to get just an isolated group reacting to that controversy. What we're trying to do right now is to get everybody out, talking about the park as a whole versus one isolated thing at a time. And hopefully that, if we look at the overall picture, we get a plan, and the plan becomes a guideline for how this park is managed and grows into the future. We also talked about a mission statement. And one of the other things that we want to do here is come up with a mission statement for the park. And so, someone want to talk about that with Tracy?
Certainly. I think the mission statement, we have certainly the mission statement for our committee, but I guess a vision statement is what I refer to for the park, and it contains broad goals for the park. And we heard some of those goals on February 8th and through the outreach to the stakeholder groups. So that has been presented on the website and as part of the meeting summary. I don't know if you want me to articulate each goal, but I certainly can.
Sure.
Yeah.
What we came up with so far is that everyone, like you said, knows that Harbor Island is the centerpiece, the jewel of Mamaroneck, as it's called. And it's a place where people of all ages and all incomes can relax, play, and enjoy being outdoors in a scenic waterfront setting. The park plays a very important role in bringing the community together and connecting the village with its waterfront. The village should build on these strengths by carefully balancing park use and development to offer a variety of active and passive recreational opportunities and special events, preserve and enhance views of and access to the harbor and Long Island Sound, to preserve and enhance natural resources, and to ensure an attractive, integrated, consistent design theme for all of the facilities in the park. So that's our draft vision statement. People on May 3rd, I'm sure, will give us some feedback on that, and they are welcome to do that.
Great. One of the other things I think we can learn is, and it's come up in committee conversation, is I think the community as a whole could learn. People know how they use the park. Rocky, you know how you use the park, but you don't know how I use the park. But
now he does.
It's important, and it's come up because you may assume that I'm not using the park because you may not see me in the activities that you're doing, and I may not see you in my activities. What I really want to make sure is that we get a better understanding about how the park is used by the entire community.
That's right.
Everybody. Who's using the beach, who's using the docks, etc. And if we have a better understanding about how the park is used as a whole, I think we can work better as a community to decide how we want that park to move forward.
Community input, community input, that was one of our biggest goals right from the beginning. And when we selected a consultant, and some of us served on the selection committee, I think that was one of the most important criteria for a consultant, that they would set up an appropriate framework for that to happen. So we've got these two stages, and the second stage that is going to happen on May 3rd. And the first stage was more a discussion about broad goals, interests, ideas, and the next one is going to be much more concrete as to what really goes down there, and an attempt to really have everybody, each group, each individual person do their own kind of design. And similar to the structure of mission statement and master plan, which is that the mission statement is that philosophical underpinning, and the master plan is that physical articulation that serves as a guideline for the future. So I think you need both of those too to prevent, as we've talked about before, that kind of piecemeal development. That kind of gave the spur to this whole process.
Right.
And
I was going to add a point, because actually I was going to add a point that Peter made earlier, and that is Mamaroneck is full of people with opinions. So, and I think that's true. And on May 3rd, if we get as many of the residents that are interested in participating in this process to come out and voice your opinion, and have other people be there to hear your opinions and hear other people's opinions. I think, because as you mentioned, you know, I use the park differently than you use the park, and I might have my own point of view about how the park ideally should be envisioned in the future, but if I hear your opinion, then it broadens my my horizons a bit.
And one of the points I want to make is that at the last meeting we had in February, when we had the 81 people at the meeting, we had also children there who broke out into their own group and who came back and gave a masterful presentation that we all learned something from. And we want that to happen on May 3rd at Rhinebeck High School also, because clearly the children are probably the biggest users of the park, or most visible. And you could see that on weekends, whether it be baseball or soccer. So they have a big stake in what goes on down there too, and their opinions count just like everyone else's.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's what we really, I guess, we're not interested in is a lot of the fields are used, and they're used maximum. That we're maxed out with using the fields. We have to be able to see what we can do to maybe increase a field down there. I think that's very important that we must look at. We have to increase our fields, whether it's Taylor's Lane or whether we can put a field back where the flagpole is.
At the harbor.
At the harbor. I just to touch on that, that's our very active part, but I think also we have to hear from people, the people that want to just go down to the park and be at peace. You know, to think and to maybe walk around to the harbor, to sit and to look and to just do nothing but dream. I think we have to hear both sides, the active and the inactive, and this is what we have to hear. And I want the people to make sure that they come down the 3rd. It's very, very important, whether it's the coaches of the soccer, the Little League, etc., and also the people that just want to be very passive recreation. Very important we get both sides, because the park is large enough that we can do it for both ends of it. So we just want to see you there. We need your opinion to tell us what to do, and that's how it's got to go. You have to tell us, and then we can do our thing in here.
The important thing to emphasize over and over again is not a predetermined process.
No,
the consultant's not coming with a set of preconceptions. We're not telling them what needs to be down there. We want to hear from everybody, because that kind of mix of comment is what's going to formulate and create the whole plan, right?
As a matter of fact, the consultant can't do anything unless they have the input from the residents.
Right.
And so
this is your plan, not ours.
Right.
And we knew that from the start, and I think people were very pleased on February 8th when they heard we weren't unveiling anything that day. That day was for us and the committee. ACARF is also working with a very skilled landscape architect from IQ Landscape Architects, and we all felt that that was a time for us to listen and sit back and listen. We've listened to each other during our monthly meetings, and now it was time to listen to the community. We'll be listening again on May 3rd, but I think we're going to take one step forward on May 3rd and start trying to articulate those ideas we heard on February 8th and the ideas we'll hear on May 3rd into something that you can see, and our landscape architect is very good at that, in illustrating those ideas. So during the last couple of months after February 8th, we've come up with some of our own ideas that we'll present to you, just to stimulate your ideas, something that's a combination of responses to what we've heard and some of our own ideas as professionals.
Great. I think maybe in a minute we can get into some of the common themes that we've heard so far from the community and that we also learned February 8th. But before we do that, I just want to reinforce the timing now is so good to do this. I mean, there's so many fantastic things happening in the village. The streetscape is done, and we're also proud of the streetscape. We've got Harbor Island Park, which is, we've heard all this before, but there it is. It's right at the end of Mamaroneck Avenue. And the potential for the connectivity between Columbus Park and Harbor Island Park, and my new thing is a sidewalk out Rushmore to, into Orienta.
Yep.
And because we talk about this as being a central place in the community, we can actually make this park a central place in the community, where everybody can come and enjoy it together.
Well, the thing to remember, we talk about it as Jewel and Mamaroneck, and it's extraordinarily unusual to have a public park as the centerpiece of a town, tied to a main street, tied to a downtown public space on the waterfront. You think about it, it just does not happen anywhere along the coast. Very, very rarely.
Yep. So we need to use that. I mean, what this could be, because the void of controversy that we have right now, to really embrace this opportunity to come out and spend the time on Saturday, and we know how valuable that is on, to spend a morning on Saturday, but to come out, because now is the time. Now is really the time. It's a tremendous opportunity that we have to come up with a master plan that will make Mamaroneck an even more special place than it already is.
And you mentioned Mamaroneck Avenue and Columbus Park. We just finished the master plan for Columbus Park. Rocky was part of that committee. I think you were on that committee, right?
Not really.
You gave
But I'm
input.
part of that.
You gave input.
That's
I remember at the meeting, I remember Rocky at the meeting standing up. But that master plan was put together. We went through a process very similar to this one. And it was very successful, and everyone was very happy with what the end result is going to be. So when we finish Columbus Park, we have Mamaroneck Avenue completed, and now with the master plan for Harbor Island, we really have something unique going here.
Piece
And
Two
I mean,
solid
together.
anchors.
It's
It's
just,
raising the whole village.
Exactly.
and again, that's why the meeting on May 3rd at Rhinebeck High School, starting at 9 o'clock, ending at 12.
Repeat that message. Message. And donuts and coffee
think
will be
donuts
served.
and bagels.
That's and bagels.
And it's clearly an important event in this village.
One of the things that I think that we have to stress, and I think it's up to our trustees and mayor, and it's for them, is we're going to build something down there. We have to maintain it.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
very, very important. And people forget this. They do it, and then they walk away. And and the Parks Department is doing a good job, but I don't think we have to maybe devise something a little more central, because that park is a tremendous asset to, and not only that, but I mean, we have about 5 neighborhood parks besides this.
Yeah.
So these are jewels, and I believe that our recreation is very important to us.
The other thing to keep in mind is, you know, as a master plan, it can be accomplished over many years.
Right.
It's not something that's going to be instantaneous, and it's important to keep that notion of a long-term vision in mind, because it gives us a little bit of an ability to think a little bit more broadly about what might happen down there.
Right.
And
And
so,
it's,
Tracy, go.
I just wanted to say that Peter made a good point in terms of the maintenance, because there's several dimensions of
Yep.
the master plan. It doesn't have to be simply a physical plan where you see where things are located. There's a dimension concerning maintenance, programming of fields, special
Right.
events. So it's really comprehensive, and we want to address all those issues.
Exactly.
and one other thing that's key to what George said is that it's a plan that goes over time.
Exactly.
And what goes hand in hand with that is the funding. You have to also plan the funding for this, and whether we're going to get grants or use village tax dollars to do this, all that has to be planned also. And so the two go hand in hand, and that's why the point that George is making is so important. It's going to happen over time.
That's right.
Right.
And so it gives us an opportunity to be aspirational as well.
Yes.
So we don't have to worry about what the master plan being implemented on November 1st when it's done in October.
That's right.
This is something that we're working towards.
Right.
So, of course, at some point you have to stop dreaming in the stars, and you've
Right.
got to bring it
You-
down and
you have to
and
set your
ground it. You have to
priorities.
set your priorities.
So
You have to do something that's realistic and something that can be maintained, absolutely. But it's an opportunity to think a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And
In phases.
In phases, absolutely.
Well, the interesting thing, that, as we go about and think about it, we have to realize that this problem has been approached a number of times in the history of the village. And the comment I keep coming back to is something that was said in an earlier Harbor Island Advisory Committee plan, which was that, you know, there's a nagging truth that the park has failed to live up to its potential as a first-rate facility.
Right.
That's why we keep approaching this. You know, everybody, I think everybody in the village feels that it could be better. So what is it that's going to make it better? We have to find that out.
Yeah.
that's why we're back here.
And,
Well
and
put.
also that piecemeal approach. I mean, you know, the fact that there was this issue around the spray ground. You know, we got the funding. Sounds like a great idea. Is it a great idea? Where are we going to put it? Where is it going to go? So there's no context.
Right.
And so when these things come up, it's hard to kind of really first justify that it belongs there, and then where, if it does, then where does it go? So I think that really
So
helps.
that's an example, I think, that if we had a viable master plan, and when that came along, we could have looked at the master plan and say, how does this fit?
Exactly.
Right.
Rather than place it where we placed it, maybe the master plan would have directed us where to put it right away.
Exactly. Or rather than have a whole lot of controversy of whether it makes sense or not,
Right.
we would have known.
Exactly.
Yep.
We
Right.
could have known. There would have been a framework for knowing.
Another
And
part
also,
of this
you know,
whole
we could have been proactive in terms of, like, if we had this plan, you know, and part of the plan is, and we wanted to have, you know, it's a spray ground now, but it could be something else, and we could go get the funding for it and say, okay,
Right.
this is how we're going to approach this.
Right.
And we can get a grant
Right.
for this particular facility and put it down, and we know where it wants. Where
More
it's
of the
gonna go.
groundwork that we're laying now also is because we're trying to get the whole community involved. And when that happens, the community buys into this master plan.
Yep.
If we come up
Right.
with a master plan in October and the board votes it in, but the community is not behind it, it will die.
Yes, it will.
Absolutely.
Nothing will happen, no matter how we
Yeah.
push it. So all the work we're doing right now, all the groundwork we're doing to get the community involved, is going to let this thing have life and be implemented over time.
And that's why it's important that people come and be involved.
Exactly.
It's very important.
And not only the
their
community, the county. I think we've all recognized
the county.
the park is linked to the county very closely with the pier and the county plant.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. Do we want to talk about, just in the short time that we have left, some of the central themes that we've learned so far in the focus groups?
Well, as you'll see in the meeting summary on the website, and that will be provided in Village Hall, there were a number of central themes. Certainly everyone recognizes that the park meets a lot of needs. It has a variety of facilities, and it should continue to have a variety of offerings. And it's used by people of all ages. And so we want to retain everything from the athletic fields, the beach, tennis courts, senior center, boat launch, pavilion, fishing pier, quiet areas around the West Basin. People also recognize that the design, in some cases, the location of recreational facilities in the park needs to be improved. They've recommended moving or eliminating buildings that block views of the harbor. I think the blue building keeps coming up.
You can say the blue building. Everybody does.
No matter what color it is, it will always be the blue building.
Years and years. Nasty blue building, yep. So that's probably the best example. And also creating a better connection between the park and Mamaroneck Avenue downtown. It's so close yet so far away because that intersection is not friendly to pedestrians. And not only that, there are plenty of other crossings along Post Road that can be evaluated and improved. Certainly improving water quality is key because of the location of the park, and reducing stormwater runoff wherever possible in the park. Enhancing pedestrian access in and around the park, maybe even providing a continuous path around the waterfront. Food was mentioned, food and shelter, and providing restrooms in convenient, well-designed locations. People recommended that the county pier should be renovated, even possibly considering allowing water to flow beneath the pier.
Yeah. And I think one of the themes you also heard was we have too much blacktop at Harbor Island.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice to
it's
get
not
rid of some
green
of the
enough.
blacktop, make it greener, improve the approach as you go down the entrance.
Yep.
All you see is
making it
blacktop
welcoming.
and curbs, which is something that we don't want.
One thing,
Well,
one thing, quickly. I firmly believe that we have our mindset that we want to open a beach. You know, I think we've been doing this for years. You know, should we? What, you know, what we'll do piecemeal here. This is very important to us now that when we get this master plan, because I feel that our beach is going to be open.
Oh, I do too.
And it's going to be also to bring in the people there, and that's why this is important to get it going.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Pete.
Yeah,
but
no, I know that.
When you sit here and go through a half hour, it goes so fast, it's incredible.
Should we finish our themes? Just, so we don't
just real quick. And
real
then
quick. Creating a better place for outdoor concerts and other events, addressing the parking issues along Rushmore Avenue, improving park maintenance and operations, like Peter had mentioned, improving the appearance of buildings and all furnishings, such as benches and lighting and trash cans, being sensitive to neighborhood concerns, such as excessive noise, improving the docks, and maybe even considering encouraging transient boaters to use the park, protecting natural resources and restoring them, especially wetlands. And finally, there was a recommendation for an educational facility or museum that focuses on the coastal environment.
That's something I'm pushing for, folks, because I really think it's needed. Well, look, we're at the end of the show, and I want to, any last comments, let's put it that way. Anybody have any last comments?
Just
May 3rd.
come May 3rd.
Come May 3rd.
And it's,
Zoom into
the
this.
park needs your help. This poor park, I think George put it perfectly. And it's a fantastic park, and it's taking a beating. I mean, we all use it, we all love it, but it's not living up to its potential. I think we all agree on that. And so we need your help. We need the community's help to help that happen.
And I could tell you that the Master Plan Committee for Harbor Island is working very hard, as is our consultant, KRF, and we want everyone to come to Rhinebeck High School on May 3rd at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we'll have you out here by 12 o'clock. It'll be a dynamic meeting. We're going to have a lot of fun, and we just hope we have as many people as possible that can come to that meeting so that we can get the right input that we need to really make Harbor Island the jewel. And we want this meeting to polish the jewel, and that way we can put a plan together for the future for all of us and our children. So with that, I want to say thank you to everyone here at the table, and thank you all for having us in your homes to talk about the Harbor Island Master Plan. Good night.